What's happening? It's Brent Axe, and we are live here on the Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page, and we're coming off the heels of a Syracuse win, a huge win over North Carolina. Final score in Greensboro, 81-53. Syracuse beats North Carolina. That snaps a 9-game losing streak for the Orange to the Tar Heels overall. Syracuse had not beaten North Carolina since they joined the ACC until tonight, and did it in Greensboro before a very pro North Carolina crowd, as you can imagine, right in their backyard. And it completed what was a pretty surreal day in the sports world. And now we await what happens next with everything that has happened with the coronavirus, a ton of cancellations and postponements and leagues suspending play. The NBA tonight has suspended play until further notice. Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz was found to have coronavirus, tested positive for it. Other teams are being quarantined tonight. College basketball teams are being quarantined. Fred Hoiberg, the head coach at Nebraska, had to be taken to the hospital. He was visibly ill on the sideline for Nebraska. And the plan right now is that Syracuse will play Louisville at 9 o'clock tomorrow. The ACC announced earlier tonight that the rest of the tournament would be played without any fans in the building. It's basically coaches, players, essential personnel, and the families of the players will be allowed to go. But it's empty arenas from here on out. But at the rate things have been going and how games are being canceled and postponed, leagues are suspending play, I would not be stunned if Syracuse and Louisville didn't play at all tomorrow night. That has got to be something on your mind as a Syracuse basketball fan. So if they did finish their season tonight, heck of a way to do it against North Carolina. Kind of a surreal day in sports and in a surreal game for Syracuse. It was just strange to be sitting there watching this game, knowing how many games weren't going to be played, are now going to be canceled going forward, and the NCAA tournament was going to be played. The announcement today coming from the NCAA with no fans in the stands, right? Same thing, essential personnel only, families of players, broadcasters, media would be allowed in to cover the games. The NIT, the same thing. You know, Syracuse's fate still appears to be the NIT. They've got one game in the books here in the ACC tournament. How surreal would it be if they somehow pulled off 4 wins in a row and then didn't even go to the NCAA tournament? I think the tournament being canceled is all on the table. Everything's on the table now. This is a strange circumstance, a surreal circumstance that's going on in the sports world. And right as Syracuse and North Carolina are tipping off and starting play in Greensboro tonight about 9:20, word came down from the NBA that they're suspending the season. We don't know till when, but for the foreseeable future, while they figure this out, they've got teams in quarantine now. They've got players testing positive for the coronavirus. Tom Hanks tested positive for the coronavirus. It's like we're living in the twilight zone. So sports is a diversion for us. Sports is where we go to get away from this stuff, but that's impossible at this point. The real world and the sports world are colliding here. Some games are still being played. How many more will continue going forward is going to be a big question mark, because the news came fast and furious today. Then you got other professional sports leagues out there. The National Hockey League, has to look at what they're doing. Other leagues that are playing right now, other sports that are playing right now, and how long this lasts, how long this will be a situation where people have to work from home, and all the methods that are being put out there to kind of combat this thing and stop the flow and the spread of the coronavirus. So surreal times for sure that Syracuse is in. So I wanted to certainly discuss that and acknowledge what's happening out there, and just kind of put the idea in everybody's head. They might not play tomorrow. I mean, don't be stunned if that becomes a thing. If, as fast as news move today, they might decide it's just not worth it to even play these games tomorrow. So if this was Syracuse's last game, they went out on a high note for sure. Elijah Hughes, to get into the basketball aspect of this, wow, did he come to play. 27 points in this one. He goes 4 of 10 from three-point range, 9 of 20 shooting the ball overall, 7 rebounds. Barama Sidibe, terrific in the paint for the Orange. 12 points, 13 rebounds. That's 6 straight games he's had at least 10 rebounds for Barama Sidibe. Buddy Boeheim really came out in the second half of this game. He ends up with 17 points. He goes 2 of 4 from three-point range, 4 of 8 shooting overall. Marek Dolzaj with 13 points. Quincy Guerrier had a real big spurt in the first half, couple of buckets in the paint, got to the free throw line as well. Carolina just could not hit water if they fell out of a boat tonight. The Syracuse defense looked as good as it has all year, and that was the thing going into this game tonight. Syracuse had to do a lot of things it had not done, and they were decent from the three-point line. They were 7 of 21 from the three-point line, but Carolina was 2 of 16. Syracuse was 28 of 60 shooting the ball, terrific throughout the game, 47%. Carolina was 20 of 60 shooting the ball. This was certainly the opposite of what Carolina did to Syracuse at the Dome just a couple weeks back on the 29th when they scored 92 points in that game. Tonight, Carolina couldn't get out of its own way. Black ended up with 14, Brooks with 18, but Cole Anthony just 5 points, 2 of 10 shooting on the night. He was 7 of 11 from three-point range in the first game alone. So a much better defensive effort for Syracuse. One of the biggest stats in this game, though, I'll tell you, is rebounding. Syracuse ended up losing the rebounding battle 42-38, but to be in this game rebounding-wise, that's what Carolina does. They just pound people on the glass. They beat Syracuse on the boards 39-29 in the first matchup. For Syracuse to stay in this thing, lead the rebounding category, or be tied in it throughout the game. Just a terrific effort overall by the Orange. Both teams were tied at 28 apiece on the defensive rebounding end. Syracuse and Carolina both with 34 points in the paint. Syracuse with 15 assists on the night. They moved the ball extremely well. This was just the anti-everything that they did down the stretch in ACC play and against Miami over the past weekend on Saturday. In that situation, in the regular season finale for the ACC. So what a game, what a moment, what a time we're in sports, and kind of wondering how much longer they're going to let these games play to divert us from thinking about the coronavirus and everything that's going on out there. But I don't think it's going to be much longer that these games are going to be played until everything's kind of halted for a while we get this under control. But while we got them, we'll talk about them here. Let's jump in the comments and see what you guys are saying about everything going on out there. David saying, Brent, I think it's ridiculous. People need to make their own decisions at their own risk. I don't know, David. I think we're beyond that. I really do. I think this is a public safety thing now. It's a public health thing. Officials have to make decisions. They have to make it safe for people to go to games. And, yeah, you can catch the flu. You can catch the cold. You can catch a number of things at games. There's no vaccine for this. There's a lot we don't know about this. And uncertainty breeds fear, and it breeds anxiety. And, now you've got players. It's ironic that, the NBA put measures into place to put safety and put the health of their players first, and they separated the media, right? They wouldn't let them in locker rooms anymore. Rudy Gobert ends up getting the coronavirus. There's video of what he did a couple of days ago where he was rubbing his hands all over the recorders and the microphones of the reporters as kind of a joke about, hey, what are we doing here? And it turns out he has the coronavirus. So there's a lot of things that are kind of going out the window in terms of letting people make their own choices about this. It's just kind of getting to the point where it's like, no, we got to figure this out. We got to stop playing these games, and we'll kind of go from there. We'll see what happens. I know the Big East has decided, the Big Ten, the ACC, a number of leagues that if they keep playing games going forward, and that's the plan as we speak right now, but things are changing rapidly, that no fans in the building going forward here. So we shall see what happens. It's going to be crazy to follow. Today was certainly one of the craziest sports days I can remember. Dave says Sidibe was great tonight. Inside presence makes this team so much better. Let's see. Pat saying no way they play tomorrow. Yeah, it's speculation at this point, but maybe informed speculation, given what's happening and how fast the world is moving out there right now, and cancellations and what's happening out there. Richard noting that whole Syracuse team played like an NCAA tournament team tonight. They had to do that. This is a team that had to come in and play like a team, move the ball better. They did that, play better defense. They didn't really shoot better from three-point range than they have in recent games. You needed Elijah Hughes to take over. Elijah Hughes did that. I wrote a column about this today on syracuse.com that if Syracuse was going to start a run in Greensboro, they would kind of have to do everything they haven't to this point, and they checked almost every box in that category. I brought up the rebounding, and you would need a little luck on your side there. I mentioned this on my radio program today and in the past couple of days that, this might be more about Carolina has a bad day than Syracuse has a good day. And Carolina had a bad day, but this was much more about Syracuse had a good day. Moved the ball. Guerrier was good. Sidibe has just been a beast. rebounding the basketball. His offense has been kind of up and down through that streak, but he's been a much better player as of late. Even Buddy came around in the second half. I thought Gerard played a lot better tonight. Gerard looked awful against Miami. His decision-making was bad, forcing shots, and people were kind of questioning if he had hit that old freshman wall, right? Well, we didn't even mention Gerard earlier. He only scored 3 points, but 8 assists on the night. That's what you need your point guard to do in 35 minutes. And he was taken out of the game early for Bryson Goodine because he was making a couple of mistakes. Threw the ball away a couple times and was kind of falling back into that freshman trap. But if you're not scoring, if you're not on your offensive game, your point guard's got to lead. He's got to distribute the ball. And that's what Gerard did tonight with 8 assists on the evening. So good for him on that front. So now the trick is you got to keep it going. And they got Louisville tomorrow night, scheduled to be 9 o'clock. If they play the game, we know it's not going to start at 9. Tonight's game tipped at 9:27 p.m. These things never start on time in Big East, in conference tournament play, ACC tournament play in this case. And there's a matter if they're even going to play the game at all. That's just speculation on my part, but I think it's kind of informed speculation at this point because of the rate things are being canceled at this point. Just kind of put it in your head that they may or may not play this game tomorrow night. But right now it's scheduled to be played 9-ish or so, the capper on ESPN. David noting that they still could have converted more Marek misses, gimmies, and he missed that one dunk, and Cole Anthony skipped the three-pointer. That made it 56-35, I believe, and he said, oh, boy, this better not be the turnaround. It wasn't the case, at least in this game. Syracuse led from start to finish and never let Carolina within striking distance of this game, which has just been not the case at all for Syracuse. They played in a lot of close games this year, come down to the wire games, not looking good in the second half games. Just go back to the Miami game on Saturday. This completely different team out there. It's been a weird season even before all this coronavirus stuff from the past few days. It's been a weird college basketball season. You never quite know what Syracuse team you're going to get. Look, when you found out that Syracuse was playing Carolina, what was your reaction, right? I mean, an honest reaction from a Syracuse fan was not those guys, because Carolina had beat them 9 times in a row. They outmatched Syracuse in a lot of ways. The way that they beat Syracuse at the Dome a couple weeks ago, shooting the 3, Syracuse could not stop the 3. The way Carolina rebounds, they just don't match up with that team. Well, tonight, they didn't match up with them. They ran by them. The tortoise and the hare, but the hare actually didn't, let up. He just kept running, and the tortoise couldn't catch up in this case. What a crazy game, for sure. And they're set to play again tomorrow night, if they play again tomorrow night in conference tournament play. Weirder things have happened, kids. Andrew notes that Buddy had a very quiet 17 points. It's pretty good when you can look that bad to the eye but end up with a good game statistically. Yeah, look, Carolina, you're down by 12, 14, 16 points. Buddy took advantage of some open shots. He hit his free throws after missing a bunch in the first half, which was kind of weird to see. Buddy had a great game against Carolina the first time around, and those were not quiet points. Those were very loud points. Those were terrific points on his end. But he'll take the confidence. He'll take the boost at this point. Linda's in Tennessee tonight. Hope everything's great down there in Hickson, Linda. Thanks for watching. Go Cuse. Adam noting that, Carolina was a 14 seed. That looked like a team that can make a deep run in this thing, but maybe they looked like a 14 seed in this game. Scott saying, frustrating year, but nice to be the team that ended Carolina's chance to make the tournament. I don't think Carolina should have been in the tournament anyway, even if they won this thing. I think if you're under 500, you shouldn't have the opportunity to go to the NCAA tournament, frankly. But, I don't make the rules. Automatic bids. And in North Carolina, mind you. And here's the other thing, too. Now, it's only one game, but Syracuse has not had a good track record in the ACC tournament overall, right? They had only won 2 games in the ACC tournament before tonight, so make that 3 since joining the ACC in 2013. And if they can win a couple more here and go on a little bit of a run, it kind of exercises that demon of Syracuse not being able to play well. Greensboro, Brooklyn, D.C., wherever this thing is, Syracuse has had quick outs in the ACC tournament, so we'll see if they can keep that going against Louisville tomorrow. Another big challenge, Jordan Nora, who, got a lot more love and a lot more recognition than Elijah Hughes did in Player of the Year conversations and other things. I mean, Elijah made the first team All-ACC, so he didn't get completely snubbed in that case. But I think Hughes is looking forward to that rematch with Louisville and Nora to show who's really the bigger player in this league. Hughes was just locked in tonight. We're so spoiled by this. We're so used to this. But it looks even better tonight because he sat out the second half, right, against Miami. We were wondering if he was even going to play. If you saw him on the bench on Saturday against Miami, he looked pretty miserable there. And I don't mean miserable in a sense of, a player that had attitude. He just, hit his head. He was dizzy and wanted to be out there with his teammates. And just a guy that, really felt like he could make a huge difference. I think if Hughes had played in that game, Syracuse probably pulls it out, right? And, you can say that about the NC State game that he missed too. And it's interesting that Hughes has had a groin injury that didn't really affect him, and now a head injury, which certainly didn't affect him in this one tonight. 27 points, looked locked in, looked all of the NBA prospect that he's turning into. So whenever that last game is played, and not just because of coronavirus, because it's one and done season, right? ACC tournament, then into the NIT, most likely for Syracuse, unless they win the ACC tournament and go to the big dance. At some point here, we're going to be seeing Elijah Hughes' last game in a Syracuse uniform. We can't really forecast that because of the one-and-done nature of tournaments and the sudden death nature, you lose and you're out kind of thing. But I think Hughes, who turned 22 this week, by the way, so happy belated birthday to Elijah Hughes. I think it's all but certain he is going to go to the NBA draft after this season. I love it. They're coming in fast and furious, and that's what's great about doing Facebook Live, because it's almost midnight where I am, but you guys are from all over the place, around the country, sometimes around the world, watching from different places. So great to see you guys here, and appreciate all the comments and coming by, even though we're staying up late tonight. And we'll be doing the same thing tomorrow if they play the game. Which at this point, I think they will. I think they'll end up doing it. They'll kind of stick with what they have, but all it's going to take is one player that gets tested positive, has effects of this. We saw Fred Hoiberg out there tonight. We don't know if he has coronavirus, but you got the head coach in Nebraska looking physically ill on the bench at a time when the hyper awareness about this virus and people being sick and being told to stay away from work, whatever that work may be. In his case, a college coach, if they're feeling sick, kind of surreal to see that out there tonight. So all it's going to take is one player in the ACC tournament that shows signs of this, if it happens, and they'll just shut it down. So just kind of keep that in mind here. It's going to be a real day-to-day thing going forward, how they play these games and how often they play these games at this point. But right now the plan is to play it without any fans in the stands tomorrow, which is going to be surreal to watch. We've certainly seen tournament games where there's not a lot of people there. Some of those early noon games, even some NCAA tournament games, right, where depending on what city you're in, what kind of fan base is there, seeing, arenas that aren't quite full is not an uncommon thing. But an empty arena because of a virus that's spreading, that's new territory for us and sports fans. We're all kind of trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. And we'll just have to keep doing that. Take it a day at a time and try and wade through the craziness here. My man Devo checking in, saying that Hughes was kind of channeling some of those great Big East tournament runs that Syracuse has seen. And he's going to have to do it again tomorrow. A la Jerry McNamara 2006, a la 2009, the 2013 tournament that Syracuse went deep in when people didn't quite see that coming, their last Big East tournament, right? So that's what these tournaments can give you, a little bit of magic, right? And Elijah Hughes, he's got a lot of Jerry McNamara in him in that case. So we'll see if he makes his case to be the best player in the ACC at the ACC tournament. And if he can keep this up, what a performance from him. 27 points on the night for Elijah Hughes. Yeah, dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. That's a big Twinkie, right, Jeff? Josh notes here, now the Nebraska team's in quarantine tonight, the two NBA teams, where there was a situation with Rudy Gobert, Utah and Oklahoma City, right? They're in quarantine in Oklahoma City, so just craziness going out there in the real world, in the sports world as well. Jim did not take his coat off tonight, Anthony. I don't think he really needed to. And Syracuse has a pretty darn good record when he does, so he's got to save that for when they got to be, they got to rally that's Syracuse's version of the rally cap, right? When Boeheim throws the coat, but they didn't need it tonight because they led from start to finish. Jim, you brought up a good point here in your comment about how big Quincy Guerrier was on the glass. It wasn't just Quincy, although his rebounds sent a big message. Barama Sidibe with 13 rebounds. The way, and look, it's not just Syracuse missing a lot of shots. He's in position to get them. They shot 47% tonight. He's getting those rebounds. He's going after those rebounds. His footwork is much better. His positioning is much better. His anticipation is much better. And what he's doing on the offensive end, the follow-up jam, the great alley-oop that Joe Girard tossed up to him. What a day for Girard. But you mentioned Gary had 9 rebounds tonight. That's the kind of player he can be. I don't think there's a player on the Syracuse team that has more upside next year than Gary. I think he's got some of the most upside in the entire ACC. Like when he gets really comfortable and confident in his game and kind of grows into his body and knows what he can do, he could dominate. He could be a first-team All-ACC guy. But you mentioned he had 9 rebounds. He was at 7 rebounds on the night. Mr. Everything, 27 points, and went after it on the boards as well with 27. And that's just a stunning number for Syracuse to be that close to Carolina in the rebounding department. But Syracuse and Syracuse fans will certainly take it at this point. Pat makes a good point about the broadcast tomorrow. They're going to have about a 30-second delay because you'll be able to hear everything. No fans in the stands, so we're going to hear everything that the coaches and the players are going to be saying down there on the sideline. Yeah, so crank up the delays there. And boy, that's going to be a surreal sight tomorrow if this game goes on as planned with a empty building in Greensboro. It's going to be kind of eerie. Remember they played that baseball game in Baltimore a few years ago when there was riots going on and they still played the game but just didn't let fans come in? Eerie to see empty stadiums. Talk shows, Jimmy Fallon, all the shows that tape in New York, they're going without audiences starting next week. Some shows have already done that. And, some people could say it's an overreaction. It's an abundance of caution. It is what it is. I think we just got to be smart. I think we've got to just look at the facts. And one of the big facts is we don't have a vaccine for this. And we kind of know how it affects certain people. Some people can have it and be fine and they just have mild symptoms. It's been shown in our older folks that have other conditions as well, people that have breathing issues. It really affects them. So there are things we do know about this, and you just kind of have to look at the experts, the CDC, and the people that are really involved in this. And I'm not a scientist. I just play one here on Facebook Live and just kind of look at what the experts are saying. But I think an abundance of caution is a good thing right now because we really don't have a handle on this and are still learning a lot about it. And until we kind of get there, I think we're going to see more cancellations, more people laying back and being smart about trying to figure this out. As we mentioned, the NBA saying, you know what, we're just going to suspend things for now. We got one of our players has this now. He could have affected a number of people that have been around him. So we got to shut this down and figure out what's going on. We'll see if college sports follow suit because the plan right now is to play in empty arenas, but that could change rapidly. So if Syracuse plays tomorrow, we shall meet here again late into Thursday evening after Syracuse plays Louisville. Really appreciate you guys coming out tonight. I really do. I'm never sure about these late night games, but you guys are up. You're watching the game. You know that we're going to be here after every game played. And, we're kind of on a weird schedule now, not only on coronavirus stuff, but because, Syracuse could lose. And then we have to wait until the next game and the next bid, whatever tournament that's going to be in. So we're kind of flying by survive in advance mode right now. So we know there's a game scheduled for about 9-ish tomorrow. And if Syracuse and Louisville play, we'll be right here on Facebook Live afterwards. Appreciate you coming by, not only tonight, but throughout the season. I love doing this and love hearing from you guys in the chat. Please check out my recap on syracuse.com on Thursday. And Mike Waters, Donna DeTota, Chris Carlson, all the great coverage and what Jim Boeheim had to say about this win, about playing in an empty arena tomorrow, the coronavirus, and, kind of the real world and the sports world mixing together here and what the players and coaches think about being in that situation in Greensboro and this big win over North Carolina tonight. Final score, Syracuse beats North Carolina 81-53. Thanks to my guy Ben Burrows behind the scenes as well. Big thanks to you for hanging out with us tonight. Hey, stay healthy out there. Stay safe. And perhaps we'll talk to you tomorrow night after, well, actually, technically tonight because it's midnight. It's now past midnight on the East Coast where I am and on my clock here. So perhaps we'll see you again tonight after Syracuse takes on Louisville in the ACC Tournament.